Regardless of the path that you have been on up until this point, it is not your responsibility to maintain that if you no longer think that that is for you. Okay, why are we calling it a crisis? If the foundation of this feeling is who am I? What do I want to do with my life? Who do I want to be in the world? And I think it often starts to come up when you begin to look at your life and maybe you find that the life you're living is maybe not the life that you imagined for yourself, or maybe it's not the type of life that you want. Maybe you imagine something different, or there are other aspirations, and you start looking at your life and thinking, wow, that really does not line up with what I say that I want or what I feel is right for me. I think a very common time to do this is when you go through uni and you study a certain topic to come out with a degree to do a certain type of career, and then you come out of uni and you think, okay, so I've just worked since I was 5, essentially, all the way through school, and I studied and I went to uni and I did all of this stuff, and now I have this career path laid out ahead of me, and all of a sudden now I'm thinking, is this what I want to do? Do I like doing this? Is this who I want to be? Can I see myself doing this for the next 40 years? And that starts the spiral. And you start to panic. And I think that's the tone of the quarter life crisis. Is this a crisis? Is this a bad thing to be experiencing? When really what it is us looking at our lives and maybe for the first time and thinking, okay, the way that I've been living, the kind of default path that I've been on up until this point, which maybe I haven't been super conscious of choosing, maybe I've just kind of been on the hamster wheel for a while now. And now I'm looking at my life and thinking something maybe doesn't match up to what I thought that my life would look like, or I'm living a life and I don't know what else I want to do, but I just feel like this life is not what I want for myself for the rest of my life. So it's kind of a manifestation, this quarter life crisis is kind of a manifestation of, one, a desire to know one's self better and have a better relationship to that, and also a desire for a better life for yourself and a happier, more aligned, more enjoyable, right life for yourself. And isn't that a great thing? Is it a crisis? Is it a bad thing to want more for your life? And I think it can feel quite frazzling and it can feel quite discombobulating, especially if it's the first time. I am a pro at this by now. So when I start to think, oh God, what am I doing with my life? That's like my comfort zone now to be in. When I'm happy and feel very content, that's like an alien experience for me. When I'm feeling very just comfortable and content and I'm waking up and I'm doing my podcast and I feel good in it and it just feels natural, then the alarm bells start to go off because I'm so used to being in this state of, oh my God, what do I want to do with my life? Who do I want to be? But it can feel very concerning, and we have this view of it like I don't want to feel like this. And I think especially because once you start to feel like this, it's hard to not feel like this until you change something. And so it's kind of like once you open the door and you see that there's other options, you can't really close the door. And even if you close the door, you still know that those options are out there and that there's more. And so obviously that's going to be constantly playing in the back of your mind. So we like the quarter life crisis and the existential crisis is something we perhaps try and avoid, or we don't like, or it's like very scary and feels very stressful. And it's something we want to kind of get out of and understand so we can conquer it, because it kind of confronts us with the idea that we're not living the type of life that we want to live. And obviously with that comes, okay, if I'm not living the type of life that I want to live, something has to change. The primary reason for wanting to talk about this is because I am having a bit of an epiphany that I think the quarter life crisis is not a crisis. I think it's such a good thing. And I think we do get to choose how we see it. We can see it as this very scary, discombobulating thing that we don't want, or you can see it as this really cool experience that for the first time I'm choosing myself. My life, I have been on the hamster wheel, whatever that looks like for you, or I've been living this certain type of way, and all of a sudden, for the first time, I am wanting more for myself, and I'm wanting to live a more aligned, and I don't want to say aligned, you know, like sometimes when you say aligned, it seems a bit woo-woo, and I don't want that. What I mean is really, I'm wanting better for myself, and I'm realizing that right now that I can have more. And even if I don't know what that looks like right now, what an incredible thing to all of a sudden be opening yourself up to a better life and the idea that you could be living better and more. And I think that's so cool. When it starts to become hard and annoying and like something you want to kind of get out of and just overcome, is when you start to want to put yourself into a box. And we love doing this. Human beings, we love to put ourselves into boxes. It makes things easier. It makes things clearer. It helps us navigate the world more. We want to put ourselves into boxes. We want to put other people into boxes. We just love boxes. Unfortunately, human beings can't be put into boxes. Like, we're too much of too many things. But I think when we want to, and it's particularly when we try and rush to figure this out, like which box we want to fit into, then it starts to feel hard. And then it starts to feel like this terrifying existential thing. But you don't have to. Like, you don't have to be one thing, and you don't have to choose one thing. Like, I'm saying quarter life crisis because that's more in keeping with my age and the things that we're probably experiencing. But the most common one is the midlife crisis, when people get to like 50, 55, and they start to buy Lamborghinis and like move to Spain, because like we're constantly evolving and being confronted with new things that we want. We're constantly unraveling this different parts of who we are and what we want. And if you at 25 decide, this is who I am, this is my identity, then of course you're going to, as you evolve, keep running into this same questions and struggles of, who am I? Is this what I want? Because you've decided at 25 who you are, and you're carrying that identity through until you're 50, 60. But if you can relax into the idea that you're probably going to be experiencing these types of crises your whole life. I think if you're this way inclined and you go down these thought processes, once you have this like existential thought process and you'll start to find the who am I, who do I want to be, once you find those lines of conversations, I don't think you ever shut the door on those things. And so maybe you could learn to enjoy it. And that's what I have been doing, and that's what makes it now when I start to have, like I said, now when I start to have these thoughts of like, oh God, what do I want to do next? What do I want to do with my job? Who do I want to be? Now I kind of revel in it, because I know that I could stress about it and I could find it really challenging. But ultimately, if I'm going to experience this periodically for the rest of my life, why don't I just say, okay, maybe this is just who I am. Maybe this is who I am. Maybe I'm not one identity or a singular thing. Maybe who I am is this ever-changing, evolving thing, and my personality, quote unquote, just gets to continue to change depending on where I am physically, but also where I am internally, what my goals are, what my desires are. Because you can't choose your goals when you're 18 and then carry that through into your 50. It's going to be constantly changing based on your desires at that time. I also think that it's not your responsibility to play the part that has been predetermined for you. It's not your responsibility to show up as the person that you have been typecast as. We as children, we kind of get typecast a certain role. Like if you're good in school, people will assume that you're going to take some sort of path. If you're very good at the arts, people will assume you're going to take a different type of path. And that's fine. And I think that's quite a generational thing. And perhaps this will change as we have now discovered the internet, new careers are coming up, like kids that are coming out of school now have crazy amounts of options. It's not just the traditional like brick and mortar or like the lawyer, the vet, the doctor, those vocations. You do have certain boxes that you're put in when you come out of school. And in general, like when you go to uni, people assume you're going to do a certain type of thing. Even if you come out of uni and you work in that job for 5 years, people assume that that's what you're going to always do. Even me, who didn't go to uni, and I took a very kind of unconventional route in that I traveled basically, like I took a gap year and then have never gone back. But it's not your job and it's not my job, regardless of the path that you have been on up until this point. It is not your responsibility to maintain that if you no longer think that that is for you. And so if you have committed to something for 5 years, 10 years, however long, and you wake up one morning or you go on a trip, you have a conversation with someone, you see a different type of life, and you all of a sudden think, actually, maybe this life that I have been playing a part in up until this point is no longer for me, and maybe I would like to do something else. It is not your responsibility to uphold that past life. And I always think of the Phoenix in Harry Potter. Always. You know how, I can't remember which one it is, but you know when he like burns to the ground? Oh, it's the Chamber of Secrets, when he like grabs them all from the chamber. And then he comes back and he's in the office and he like burns to the ground. And Dumbledore's like, oh, don't worry. He'll come back. Like he just burns down and then comes back. That can be you. And there's this quote about a phoenix, and I wish I could find it. And I honestly try and find it on Pinterest probably once a month and I still can't find it, but I think I read it when I was a teenager. Like you get to be a phoenix and you get to change and iterate your life as many times as you want, and you can continue to do that until you're on your death's door. You do not have to continue to play the part that you have always played just because you feel like that's the box you've been put in. You can be anyone. It's not your responsibility to continue to do that just because people have put you in that box. I want to leave you with a quote, and I want to leave you with a question that you can take away from this, because the quarter life crisis thing can feel very intimidating, and I also think it can feel quite all-encompassing when you're experiencing it. You just kind of wake up in the morning and you're like, oh my god, what the fuck am I doing with my life? But the thing is, I think that can be said in two ways. You can either be like, oh my god, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Or it can be said, what am I doing with my life? You know, and you see the difference. It can feel like, what's that quote? Oh, see, I told you, I'm literally a walking, talking quote book. Is it Alan Watts? He says you can either do it like it's a great way, or you can do it like it's a part of the dance. And so you can either have these thoughts and start having these feelings of like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? Who am I? Who do I want to be? That can either feel like the biggest burden and it can be the worst thing ever, or it can be an inquiry and it can be interesting. And you can remember that this is me choosing myself. And even though it feels scary and a bit confusing, and I'm kind of scared that I'm going to have to burn my whole life to the ground and start again, this is me choosing me. And this is me wanting better things for myself. And I would rather experience these hard feelings and at the end have a better life for myself than to never experience this at all. This is you choosing you, and I think that's so sick. So let me do a quote and the question before I yabber on for the next 20 years. Oscar Wilde said that if you know what you want to be, then you inevitably become it. That is your punishment. But if you never know, then you can be anything. There is a truth to that. We are not nouns, we are verbs. I am not a thing, an actor, a writer. I am a person who does things. I write, I act. And I never know what I'm going to do next. I think you can be imprisoned if you think of yourself as a noun. I love it so much. You are not a thing. You are a person who does things. And so you're not a lawyer. You're a person who practices law. You don't have to be anything. You can just be a person who does things. And I think if you can take yourself out of the box of being a noun, it gives you the ability to just be a verb and just do lots of things. Okay, so my question that you can take away from this, it's kind of like homework, except I'm not going to check it and you don't actually have to do it because love you. Question right now that I often come back to whenever I'm experiencing these feelings is, right now, what version of myself would I be excited to be? I told my friend Brooke, I'm reading it because I said it in a message and she replied. I said that I'm always, no matter what I'm doing, even if I'm loving it, and even if I'm having the best time and I think it's super aligned with me, there's always the tiniest part of me that is wondering, is there something else I should be doing that I would like better? And she said, whatever feels good for you is the aligned thing. And I said, okay, but what if this feels good, but there is something else that would feel even better, but I don't know because I'm stuck doing this. So I always have that running in the back of my mind. And all she said to me was, you can never get it wrong and you'll never get it done. Just have fun. Fun is alignment. And that's why I love that right now. What version of myself would I be excited to be quote, because it just reminds you that you can be anyone you want and you can change at any time. But right now, who is the person that would be most fun for me to be? What version of myself would I most like to be at this time? And then I can just be that person. Love you. We're all quarter life crisising together. See you in the next episode. Love you. Bye.